Welcome, everybody. Thank you for hopping on. Welcome to Lady Problems, your source for powerful, honest, vulnerable conversations about the struggles that we all face and how to get through them so that we can all be stronger together. I am your host, Casey Jade. I am a Vegas-based boudoir and branding photographer. I help women who want to see a positive change in the world start with themselves by taking back their time or helping them take back their time and step into a stronger sense of self-worth from the boardroom to the bedroom. And today we have the one, the only Jeannette Catalano. Woo! Jeannette is an amazing fitnesspreneur, badass lady. She owns Refined Personal Training. She's a board certified master hypnotist. She is also a 16-year fitness professional and emotion coach. So who better than to come on and talk about navigating the waters of domestic abuse during this quarantine thing we got going on, huh? Hi, Jeannette, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited that we figured out this live on Facebook thing.
Well, yeah, and you know, we'll set a small disclaimer. We were kind of leery. We're like, how are we going to do this? What if people, want to be a part of it, but they don't want to show their face? So it is a sensitive subject we're going to attack today. So there will be things that you may or may not agree with. Or they might just make perfect sense. So I think it's very important that when we discuss domestic abuse, we discuss the many different kinds of it, because it isn't just male hitting female or, what the stigma is attached to it. We have to discuss all different kinds, how it's happening, and, how we can understand people who are in the situation so we can have our hearts open to them, and how we can understand even the abuser, because they are people too. So I think with this subject, being so prominent right now with quarantine, I got a bunch of emails like, "Oh, Jeannette, I'm so sorry you went through this. Oh, and Casey and I discussed, please save your sorries from us or for us. We are good. So let's keep those sorries for the people that are in it right now. Let's keep those sorries for the people that are maybe don't even know they're in it. Manipulation is a big form of abuse. So when we talk about it today, we have to have an open mind. And we also have to have some accountability on our end, whether we've done abusive behavior as women or men, or whether we've been in an abusive situation. So in light of that, let's hit with some statistics before we get started.
Yeah, I actually volunteer my time with an organization called the Cupcake Girls, and they're a 501c3 based in Vegas and also up in Portland. And they provide support services for women who have been through sex trafficking and or who have been involved in the adult industry. Tons of different services, and they posted a few stats yesterday that were crazy. They said that emergency calls for domestic violence have risen an average of 10 to 30% in the past few weeks. 9.4% of all women in the US have been raped by an intimate partner in their lives. And 30 to 60% of perpetrators of intimate partner violence also abuse children in the household. So lots of numbers. Nice. I know that Jeannette and I were also talking earlier about the fact that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have had to deal with this in their lives. So hopefully by having this conversation, we can help provide some support and resources and more definitions to what it looks like, what it is and isn't, who goes through it, and how we can help those of us who are struggling with it, or anybody we know who is. So again, yeah, this is a really hard subject to broach, but thank you so much to everybody for being here and being strong and helping yourself or others go through. So.
All right. Well, and it's, before we talk about the impact that we can have by having these discussions, I want everyone to think about Me Too and how it just came off a simple tweet of somebody tweeting Me Too, and how all of a sudden this whole uprise of women and men and children and everybody understanding that also, just like domestic violence right now is a silent, panic. And in most cases, people don't talk about it. This is something that goes back generations. A lot of our mothers, our grandmothers, our fathers, our great grandmothers have been in abusive situation. Many children for years and years and years. My mother always kind of taught me, to watch myself and to be careful of myself, because how she was taught was to watch out for strangers. But abuse was really happening in the house, with someone it's a friend, it's a priest, it's a colleague, it's this. So we're going to approach this very sensitive topic with an open mind and an open heart, because we forgive people too. We move on. And I think the biggest thing we want to do is show the possibilities to people, and how there's a great big life on the other side of this that they can have. And Casey and I both, being in domestic abusive situations, we stand here as pillars of strength. We are coming to you from the strength that we got from our situations, and we'll both share ours. We'll get a little raw for a second today. But I think before we get into our stories, we got to talk about abuse and what it is. It's not just a physical thing. They're physical. Okay, someone could punch you, slap you, throw you out the car, do all those things. Yeah, we know it. And just like mental health, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So there's a lot going on. Our subconscious remembers everything. So we got to talk about mental abuse. These abusers can be man, woman, child. They can be lovers. They can be friends. They can be family members. They can be colleagues. They can be bullies. They can be in all different versions of a relationship. So any possible relationship that you can think of, the abuse cycle does not discriminate to how it works. So when we start to talk about domestic abuse, are we only going to talk about the people that get hit, or are we going to talk about the people that are constantly beaten down and feeling worthless? Because I tell you what, being told you're worthless every day, you're going to get at a point of stuck and possibly never get out unless you break the cycle. So mental health and emotional health kind of coincide, right? So we receive everything mentally, right? And then all of a sudden it instills in our emotional body, right? So if somebody keeps showing anger, and it provokes you to feel fearful and think in a fearful way, eventually you're going to be overcome with fear, right? So if somebody beats you down and calls you ugly and bullies you, eventually, emotionally, you are going to attach to that and possibly believe it yourself. So the emotional abuse is huge. A lot of parents do it nowadays. We're actually seeing a spike in elderly abuse from their kids, so people taking advantage. So let's keep an open mind as far as what abuse is. Parents can guilt their children. That is abuse. So anything that kind of interrupts or causes some sort of manipulation
Financial abuse too, right?
Oh, economic abuse. You got it. How many women out there are just so afraid because they're being provided for? So economic abuse is huge. A lot of people stay just because maybe having security is a little bit more important than having that great love or a trusting relationship or something like that, because security is such a value. Or maybe they're beat down so much to think that that's all they get, or that's all that's out there. You're never going to have anyone better than me. You're never going to be happy. You're never going to, oh God, we've all heard it, right?
You want to know one thing I've heard? Directed towards me. I have had someone say, you can't do anything alone.
Oh, wow. So here's the thing, and we're going to get more into the psychology of abuser, but the abuser typically, if we go all the way up to the biggest picture we can make it, right, is they are feeling a loss of control and like a power struggle, right? So this could have been taught early on. This could have been taught by their parents, or they could have experienced this themselves. So we have to be very careful with how we judge the abuser too today, okay? And then we got spiritual abuse. So, hey, making fun of the kid who believes something differently than you is abusive. Using somebody's spirit, using somebody's God against them is abusive. You know, so claiming you know something better, claiming they don't know. So people can even be abusive with your spirit, with your beliefs, with your God. You know, if anyone grew up in church, but that's a whole different subject. So you have to be really careful with how we label abuse, and we really have to think outside the box here with, you know, how people are suffering. And, you know, even in this time, I think the economical abuse is probably being used more than ever if one is a provider and one is not.
Well, especially if somebody's deemed an essential worker versus a non-essential worker right now. I'm sure that there's a lot of that going on, and a lot of roles have flipped right now. So a lot of people are in situations they've never dealt with before. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that these statistics are on the rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're home. There's a loss of control, right? Control and power, right? Maybe we have financial. Maybe you've been, you know, running on autopilot for your marriage or for your relationship, and you didn't really know, you know, what's going on, and you guys been just kind of tag teaming life. So this happens more often than we talk about. And, you know, I hope whoever's out there, and if they recognize after they learn the abuse cycle today, you will know if it's used on you or if you're in it, and you will recognize it when others are. You know, and it doesn't mean go running to them and saying, hey, you're in the abuse cycle and you need to get out of that. So we're going to give you some techniques to help people, and how I was helped out of my situation, and how you guys can help too. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. I can't wait. Do you mind if before we get into the abuse cycle, you do go into your experience a little bit?
Yeah, I will. So I have the stigma one. You know, I fell for a guy. And I think it's important that I point out where I was in my life when this happened, because I was very proud and, you know, Miss Independent Woman. I think Destiny's Child dropped that album that year, and, you know, I played it in my PT Cruiser and, you know, thought I was everything. So, you know, I was managing a downtown gym, and I absolutely loved it. I still do it to this day. And I was working at one of the most fun bars in Chicago. It is world famous, and, you know, I love a lot of those people to this day. And I made the cardinal mistake of all of us who worked in the nightlife industry of bringing home the hot guy that I worked with that never left. So, and it started out like awesome. He was older than me. You know, I was 21. It was about 15 years ago. I was a little younger, or a lot younger, but, you know, pretty sure of myself. I was making good money. I was pretty confident. I just built my own body. I lost a lot of weight. I was in a good time, you know, and it turned into kind of a whirlwind, a romance, a hot, heavy, you know, all those passionate things, you know, for that could wreck your judgment, right? And about 6 months into it was the first incident. And again, I was strong and funny and charming, and no man could ever put their hands on me until it happens to you. Until it happens to you. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So we were driving home, and it was building up. I noticed the red flags. Like, there were some things not right. But between the pillow talk, the dreams and the love and the babies and all those, you know, things that you talk about when you first get together as a couple, you know, I knew I was holding on to those things, but I did have an inkling. I knew something wasn't right, you know, and my maturity then couldn't grab what it was, I guess. But you go anyway, because you want it so bad. You want the relationship. You want the love. So over time, I noticed I was just paying for everything. And it wasn't cool. I made more money than he did, but you know, so after work, I'd grab a sandwich, and one day, legit, the first incident was over a chicken sandwich. Where to go? Okay. So we're driving home, and it's 4 a.m. And I just kind of turned, why did I pay for everything? Like, you know, like, it's a $5 sandwich. Can you get a girl a sandwich? And he, full fist to my temple, punched me in the head. And I hit him back. And he hit me back twice as hard. So women, don't think, I don't care if you take kickboxing classes. There's a certain amount of power and that is physically stronger than you, you know? I worked out, I was strong, right? So, and in that moment is when I made my decision to start my cycle. I was in shock. I was in complete shock. It was, we were just having breakfast talking about houses and businesses and being together and making wonderful lives and, you know, dreams and Disney and all those wonderful things. Like, what just happened? My life just changed in this moment. And I didn't want to believe it, you know, and I couldn't. And I was like, no, this isn't it. This isn't it. And that's really where my cycle began. And we were together for a little bit over a year. And so that means that this cycle continued for about 6.5 months or so until I broke it. And before we talk about me breaking it, we're going to talk about the abuse cycle. But I do want to say, you know, there's people happening right now, you know, I think my story scratches the surface of what actually happens. There are tragic and horrific and people being held against their will and raped against their will and sexual abuse and everything you can imagine. So I don't want to, this isn't a like, oh, here's my story, but I hope it can relate to people that you don't have to be, you know, this broken down, battered woman to avoid or to be in an abusive relationship. You know, that this can happen to the strongest of us and the best of us. So can we pull up the abuse cycle? So
let me screen share. Give me one moment. Jeopardy music. Oh. Can you see it?
Got it. Very
Perfect.
cool. All right. So this is great. All right. So the abuse cycle goes like so, and you can find so many different versions of this, and they all pretty much go into the same thing. You can find it online. I think I like this one best just because it does bring the tension. So we're gonna kind of walk through what happens here. So there's a tension buildup. You know, there's communications going off, maybe jealousy, maybe ownership, maybe all those things that somebody thought was wonderful and awesome about you all of a sudden aren't so wonderful and awesome, and they're picking you apart for it, you know? So there becomes a disconnect, right? So, and it does say the victim. Casey and I wanted to be very clear today that we didn't want to get into too many labels because like the second we label ourselves victim, are we going to stay there? No. Right? I used to be very overweight. If I labeled myself obese, I might still be there. So we want to talk about coming out of this, right? We want to talk about people who overcome these situations. So the tension builds up, right? Then there's the incident, right? There's however it happens, whether it is verbal, sexual, physical, spiritual, you name it. There's the blowout, right? Then we run into the reconciliation. You know, the abuser apologizes, the abusee complains, right? This is where the abusee gets to say, oh, how could you touch me? You're never gonna do it again. Or this is where, in child abuse cases, they might start grooming again. So there's like a reconciliation, right? We get back together. Now we start talking about the dreams, and that one incident didn't even happen. It's gone, right? So now we're back into dream. I'm gonna be better, man or woman. get this straight. There are plenty of women constantly demasculating their men, breaking them down, okay? So in terms of abuse, you know, even men abuse other men, you know? Dan Snyder, who's an NLP coach in San Diego, he says, well, you can put a bunch of men in the room and watch them all move around and find out who's alpha, right? So men tend to castrate, as Dr. Adriana James just said in a recent interview, they castrate other men, maybe their sons, maybe their brothers, maybe their fathers, because they need to feel alpha. Women castrate each other, and this is all of us. So I'm guilty of it. I know all of you beautiful, amazing people have been less than amazing and have done this too, especially girls. We tear each other apart to be alpha to the male. Okay? So I want you guys to think about that. When a pretty girl walks in the room, are you being abusive to her because she simply walked in the room? When somebody's star is shining, are you being abusive to them because their star is shining? You know, why build somebody down or bring somebody down when it's a complete abusive manipulation? So let's just keep that in mind when we think about abuse too. So reconciliation, abuser has this epiphany, they keep moving on, and then the calm happens, right? The abusee forgives here. She forgot it. He forgot it. They forgot it. I'll use every pronoun today. So don't get me today, guys. And then it keeps going. And unfortunately, this cycle continues over and over. Could be months, could be years, could be forever, until somebody breaks the cycle. So any questions or feedback so far?
Everybody good?
Yep, cool. So when you think of this, think of where it applies to. You know, think this could be happening from a corporate situation to, you know, as little as your two best friends ganging up on you all the time. So please, 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 this cycle, it does translate over to just about every relationship that has abuse in it. And I think one thing we want to do is bring a sense of normalcy to this epidemic, where we can talk about it, not where it's just normal and expected, because guess what happened after I broke my cycle? I called my father, who is one of the greatest people in my life and I lost him this year. And I called him and I said, Dad, he's hitting me. And my father's response goes, what did you do? Okay, so I want people to understand the certain mentality we have around this. What did I do? That's not what I wanted to hear. That's not what I needed. But because it's so acceptable in a lot of relationships. Oh, he mistreats her, big deal. Maybe this person will lie to you. Maybe this person will gaslight you. There's so many forms of manipulation. They'll tell you you're crazy. They'll cheat on you. And then every time you're about to leave them, they'll take you on a vacation. They'll take you out to dinner. They'll be their beautiful, charming self, right? And you'll find even if you do break the cycle and you do get out, they still try to come back. So all of you thinking, he doesn't care if I leave, or she doesn't care if I leave, or they don't care if I leave, they care. They'll be back. So, and it's up to you to break the cycle. So I think it's important to understand where the abusee is. When I was in my situation, got to the point after months of the cycle going, and people were asking questions. I had a boss come up to me and ask me about the bruises on my arms. My best friend and roommate at the time had no idea how to help me. I didn't talk to my family for like the whole time. I didn't talk to any of my friends. A lot of the time when I called people and told them what happened, they were all surprised because they just haven't heard from me for like a year. And there is an isolation. You become guilty and shameful. You don't want to have to explain yourself, you know, because you're kind of leading on these matters of the heart. or you're leading on the last thing. I was leading on the last thing he told me. What are you talking about? We're going to be married. We're going to have kids. We're going to have all those wonderful hearts and rainbows and all those great things. So, if any of you guys have that girlfriend or guy friend and they're like, oh, they're so stupid. What are they doing with that guy? Well, for one, brainwashing is a big thing. It can only be so long that you can beat someone down and that they won't believe it. And they won't believe they're worthless. Some people even become addicted to the pain. So people that get out of these relationships, they go into without proper healing and revelation and intervention, they'll carry this to their next relationship. Why won't you hit me? I deserve pain.
Song lyrics, Jeannette. I've heard so many song lyrics that say that, like that they're addicted to the pain. Like this is so true. Like in so much of society, like it's crazy.
Yeah. So, we begin to think that we're not worthy of these beautiful, loving relationships, So, if you want to help someone, and my best friend is here, the one who helped me, and what helped me break the cycle. Yay! And I'm going to quote him, so in my best way too. And so after I'm feeling isolated, unworthy, guilty, I knew it was wrong. Those people in these relationships, sexual, physical, emotional, whether you have somebody gaslighting you and telling you you're crazy every time you catch them cheating or whatever it is, and that's why I became a personal development coach, because I help people find their own answers. I knew it was wrong. I knew from jump it was wrong. But you keep going, and I think as women, we're so afraid to have another failed relationship, right? To have this one thing that we made plans for, we set our goals to be completely thrown up in the air and in turmoil, right? So we get lost on that idea, the fantasy that the abuser gives us, right? In that reconciliation, in that calm time, right? Because they can be so sweet and charming and everything else. So if words are only 7%, we need to judge people on their behavior. We can't listen to the pillow talk. We can't say, oh, but he loves me, she loves me, they love me, my mom loves me, my dad loves me, all these people love me. So love is a verb. And let me tell you, all of you out there that are in a situation and you're not sure what you're worthy of, and not all men are that way. And there is a relationship for you that you deserve.
Not all humans are that way. Not everybody is that way.
Yeah, not everybody is that way.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot of people that, just like you said before, they don't realize that they're in that situation, right? So like all this information could be really surprising to them, and they could see a lot of that in themselves. So maybe going over that how to break it now, like, yeah. There's a lot of people, like, that's such a hard process to break it too.
Yeah.
Especially for the people who don't know that they're in it.
Very cool. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. And we'll get back to, so what happened, I had my epiphany. So I remember the first blowout, which I described to you. Mm-hmm. And the last one I remember as well. And I think we like shut down a club because it was like a blowout. Right. And my best friend comes to me, and he was the one of two people left that I had not isolated myself from, right? The one of two. And he said, sister, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to be next to you. And he said, everyone has to learn for themselves. Because he had went through, he's in the gay community, so he had a gay domestic issue. So he was there to help me right before, we became best friends. And he pointed down and he goes, that ain't worth it. Like that. And I kind of thought, and you know how you have those aha moments? And I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, what am I getting here? Like, I'm just living on a dream. Like, I'm not even, all those things aren't even true. And then I broke away and I broke my cycle. And from there, it was, I say, half broken. Okay. Because there's that, you know, when you break up and you still kind of see each other and talk to each other and you think you need closure and maybe you can have a dinner. And, you know, we went through that because you love, right? You do what you might call stupid. And it got crazy. I found out he had a key to my house. He walked in my door when me and my friends were just sitting having a glass of wine at the table. It was getting intense. And at 22 years old, I was like, okay, what do I have to do? How do I get away from here? So I quit the bar job, which I loved. It was such a good time. And I told my bosses at the gym I worked from, who were amazing to me, that, you know, I was going to give them a couple months notice and I got to move to Vegas where my sister lives. And I gave away every piece of furniture I owned and shipped what I saved in 3 boxes to my sister's house and landed on her couch, right? So here's the thing. That didn't seem too appealing from my plush apartment, right? But I knew I had to get out and I knew I had to get away. And part of breaking the cycle is you have to do it. At some point, you have to take your own accountability. If anyone here or who watches this knows someone who is in the cycle, be there for them. Don't be there to judge them. Don't go talk to your friends and gossip. And, you know, it's not that. Be there for them because they're going to need you when it's over. If eventually it becomes toxic to you, then you have to draw your boundaries and, you know, give them the 1-800 number and do what you can. But I think the most important thing you can do for an abusee is be there for them. And from there, as we say, we stand here as strength. From there, you know, I rebuilt myself and I did it physically. Tony Robbins, you know, nobody feels sorry for him today. He talks about the abuse from his mother and what he found was running. He took it to running. And every day he went running and he called himself unstoppable and he built himself physically. So, you know, I found the gym. I surrounded myself with friends. I started reading. I started studying. I started advocating. And I can talk about this today with strength because I've healed from it. I got to work with a life coach who helped me heal my emotions. Because even though I got away, 6 months later, all my bruises were gone. I was rebuilding. I was building my career and my self-esteem and books and self-help and everything like that. But one day my uncle raised his hand to me and I flinched. Okay, so I wasn't healed yet. So the abusee needs to look inside. They need to heal their wounds before they go into the next relationship, before they go into the next career, whatever it is, because you don't want to take that with you. You know, you're looking through a negative perspective. So as the abusee, we're going to leave some hotline numbers and everything at the end. But unfortunately, you have to separate. If you are in a situation right now and you still, you know, you want to work through it, couples work through this. Believe it or not, they do. You need professional help. You cannot do it without professional help. You need psychiatry, a therapist, a life coach, a mediator, family intervention, possibly a trial separation. So think that abuser, as we go into him or her or they, and abusee, him, her, or they both have internal work to do. So, you know, because we don't want to be stuck in that victim kind of frame of mind either. So it happened. It doesn't mean anyone deserves anything. You know, I've heard, and just being a coach, I've heard some of the most tragic cases of abuse that I can't even repeat. And these people, although it happened, they don't carry it with them. So I think it's really important for not just the abuser currently who has issues to get help, but also for the abusee to do a lot of internal work and figure out, you know, did it come from a childhood, you know, situation? Is it fear of rejection? What is it that keeps you in this situation, right? All right, so now the abuser. How are we doing on time, Casey? Pretty good?
Yeah, we're good. We're at 1:38.
Okay, cool. So the abuser, he will isolate you, she will isolate you, they will isolate you. They use a lot of resistance, threats, indulgence. You know, they give you trivia. they always downplay their reaction. Okay. They always downplay whatever they did. They feel shameful as a person. Okay. They feel I am bad, but they don't feel guilt. Guilt is over actions. Shame is I am bad. I am this. I am this. Reject all of that. You're all wonderful people, but it's getting into that mind frame. So they do experience shame, but they won't experience too much guilt until maybe if they seek intervention or, or help after. So they will dominate, they will gaslight, they will verbally assault you. They use blackmail, they use constant chaos. If you notice, if you've ever been in a relationship with any type of abuser, parent, child, mother, father, lover, everything, there's always chaos surrounding them. It's just always kind of chaotic. They do a lot of blaming, never or internally. They make a lot of excuses. Their verbal communication is not there. It's just not there. And, they glorify pretty much themselves all the time. So they'll downplay their negative actions and kind of glorify all the wonderful things they do. Typically, these abusers only need power and control. It could be something that was taught to them. Maybe they grew up watching their father. Domestic abuse went in my house. I grew up in witnessing and hearing about domestic abuse on both sides of my family. It was normal, right? So obviously you could tell from my father's first response to me.
And also, one thing that's interesting too is that physical abuse doesn't beget physical abuse, right? So if you were emotionally abused as a child, you could then physically abuse, you could emotionally abuse. It doesn't, one thing doesn't necessarily lead to that 100% thing. It just comes out differently, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, because there's usually a greater problem behind the presenting problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. So often hurt people. We all know that, right? People who are hurt like to hurt or tend to hurt, whether they like it or not, others. It's power, it's control. Maybe they didn't have that power control growing up. And that's why they're seeing it right now in this corona, in this environment where, people are, Tad James actually says in his process or in his audio that women and men tend to marry our unconscious minds and then project our unresolved issues on to each other. Okay. So, and if you get that, take that because and that could be happening. So let's be clear. Abuse is not a fight, guys. Couples fight. The best couples argue sometimes and they get over it. They make up. It is not abuse because you got in a moment of frustration. There are plenty of men in jail right now that don't deserve to be there because they were wrongfully accused too. So we have to look at the paradox of this whole entire situation, so case by case. The abuser also, either they were abused, it was a genealogical thing, or maybe it came, over time. So I think the best thing we can do, the abuser needs help. The abuser needs some sort of, whether it's anger management, psychiatry, intervention. We need to love these people and not isolate them, but they do need help. But the abusee needs to get away. They need to remove themselves from the environment because you can't just fix yourself in a toxic environment.
That seems to be a little bit more difficult during these past few weeks. So like we said at the beginning, we'll definitely share some support services just in case, you guys do need to break out of the cycle now, because that is way harder when you can't just leave.
Exactly. People are being trapped behind their own will. I got tons of messages about child abuse right now. That is happening. These poor babies are stuck home with their predators. And the more awareness we can bring to this situation and at a full, if elephant in the room or dust under the rug, that's what it was 50, 60, 70 years ago, guys. This is happening. It happens to the best of people. It happens to the worst of people. And it's not what happens to us, it's what we do with it. So I can't tell you how many women I've talked to over the years about my situation, and they said me too, and they would tell me theirs, and we would relate over that, you know. And if you use, it's these things that happen to you that, you know, maybe are a little bit unpredictable, but still in your control. Essentially, I was in a cage, but the door was open. I could have left anytime. I could have left that first red flag, that second incident, the third, the fourth, the fifth, whatever. It was, I stayed on my choice. You know, there's Sherlock syndrome where somebody who's kidnapped falls in love with their kidnapper, or thinks they're protected by them, or
Not Stockholm syndrome.
Or Stockholm. Sorry, not
Sherlock. I've never heard that.
Sherlock. Sorry. Stockholm. You got it. I was thinking Sherlock, but Stockholm. You got it right.
I love it.
Where actually they, you know, where they go for their abuser. So it's a serious mentality. And I think people just need to talk. I think we need to bring this conversation to the table a lot more. I think there's tons of organizations and events and all these things, workshops, that you can learn about this. And even if, you know, we did get a few responses, I've never dealt with this. But I know people who have. You know a lot more people that have than you think you know. So it's important to know the situation, and you can recognize it when, you know, if you have somebody that you love that's in it.
You're definitely not alone. And it's amazing to me how many of the women that I look up to as mentors, as amazing businesswomen, as amazing mothers, strong, fierce, badass women that I have had conversations with that I never expected, that blew me away, came straight out of left field. And I never could tell from who they are and how they present themselves that they ever went through anything so hard.
Right.
And hard to get out of. And it's just amazing. So no, you're not alone. And there's so many resources, and there's so many people out there that love you and want to see you thrive and happy and in a more, you know, happy place.
Oh, well, you know, on the other side of fear is where you're going to get all the wonderful things that happen to you. You know, that freedom to leave, you know, have your J-Lo enough moment. You know, so you're not stuck. You may feel stuck, but you're not stuck in it. You know, parents or kids separate from their parents all the time. You know, there are resources. And if you know something that's going on, if you know some kids in the neighborhood that look like they're suffering, you know, you can see these abusees. You can see it in their eyes. You can see the worry and the fear. You can see the sadness in their frown. You can see the body language being defeated. They might even be angry. So you might talk to them, and they might always have like a kind of angry, negative response, right? So if we're not our behaviors, they're just not, we're not going to judge them by their behaviors, but we have to change the behavior. And everyone absolutely can do it. So what we are going to leave with, what do you want to pull up some of the resources and everything?
I have them all typed up, so I'm actually going to put it in the replay and the posting for this so that everybody can get them. But we're going to post on there all the information for St. Jude's for children, for Shade Tree, for Safe Nest. Cupcake Girls is actually doing a Share Your Check and Share My Check campaign this week. So if anybody, you know, they don't need the resources for themselves or others, but they would like to donate to really finding you know, to really helping, then you can, I'll put the information for that for Cupcake Girls, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence website. We have the information for the Resource Center on Domestic Violence, and also Help of Southern Nevada. So there's a bunch of resources we're going to be posting. So if you don't have, you know, normally we can go out with our girlfriends, have a glass of wine and be like, look, I realize what's going on and I just, you know, need some help. Can you give me grace? But now we don't have that opportunity right now. So if you are in need of resource, we will post everything up that we can. And Jeannette is going to be able to be here for you on a continuing basis. If you would like to, you know, get with her on working through things or talking, Jeannette, let them know how they can find you. We'll also post that too, but that's so important.
Yeah. So I think once you break the cycle, the most important thing, you got to forgive your abuser. Forgiving my abuser was kind of easy, the hardest part was forgiving myself for letting it go that far, forgiving myself for being the independent woman that I was and letting a situation happen like that come out of left field. Hardest part is forgiving yourself, to eventually not be like, hey, this happened. I grew from it. I overcame it. I now help people because of it. And there are so many people and all of us who are coaches, we're not pillars of perfection. Let me tell you, we're not in these situations because life has just been so wonderful from us and we've never felt any pain or suffering or anything like that. We're all here, Casey, me, lots of us were here because we've experienced these things and we've overcome it. The perfect coaches, they might be millionaire mentors and success coaches and all of those. But us as emotion coaches and those who feel born to serve and born to help people heal, we all have been through our own, we all have our own demons. We all have our own things that happen to us, but it's how we reframe it. It's the lessons we take. I got therapy. I got emotion coaching. My aunt was a life coach and she did emotion coaching with me, which has inspired my career. And I wanted to go on and help people heal too, because you're not going to, forget the memories, but you will be able to sit here just like me and Casey today and tell your story with strength, with, almost like a sense of pride of how strong you are and how you've overcome it and the learnings that you have and how you can teach others and help others grow through it too.
Light the path for others.
Yeah. So this is something that's been happening for a long time. People have been talking to us about this for a long time. I'm not a Harvard expert on domestic abuse, but I am probably a case study. So we need to hear more real stories and inspire others. So if you could share yours, because it's a little different, that would be wonderful.
Mine is a little different. I mean, I feel like I have actually been in emotionally abusive relationships a few times in my life. And it's definitely a cycle that I have to get quiet with myself to not repeat again, because it is something in me that is attracting that. And it's really hard, just like you said, the hardest part is really saying, oh, I thought I was smarter. I thought I was stronger. I thought I was okay. And I wasn't going to go through this, or I wasn't going to, it's hard because we have so much love for so many people and we care so deeply. And sometimes we're just with the people, and we're with the potential that we see in them versus where they are right now. And that's really one of the hardest parts, because a lot of us see the best in others and that's who we want to be all the time. But they might not be ready to be that person. They might not be there yet, and you can't do anything. All you have control of is yourself and your emotions and your reactions and your choices every day when you wake up. So I have definitely been a part of mentally and emotionally abusive relationships. I was in a relationship where my boyfriend at the time threw me into a wall. And I told him, I was like, never again. I was like, you raise your hand to me one more time. And that was it. But it's funny because it was easier for me to get out of the physically abusive relationship than it was the emotional, because just like that picture I posted in the talk, not all violence and abuse leaves bruises. And it's a lot easier to show somebody the bruise and justify to yourself, I need to break this cycle, than say, well, nothing's really happening. I'm not getting hurt. I'm not being physically harmed. This is fine. I'll fix it, all that stuff. So it's a lot harder to break when it's emotionally and mental. Or financial definitely has been a huge one. Like, oh, we're going to have an amazing life together. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of you, whatever. And then just using that as a tactic to get us to stick around. And it's just part of that cycle. And it's a really dangerous cycle. Yeah. And it's hard to break.
Well, since this is Lady Problems, I will say Since Corona, I have done only breakthrough sessions, with hypnosis regarding love life and relationships. And I've been telling everybody the same thing. When somebody is for you, a man, say this is lady problems. When a man is for you, it is undeniable. You will not question if this man loves you. He will marry you. He will be there for you. He will restore you. There is no doubt in anyone's mind when somebody loves you and they're for you, because you'll see it in their behaviors. Unfortunately, we tend to get into the baby talk. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that he really loves you. So if you are in a relationship and you're questioning if he loves you or she loves you, chances are maybe not really, because when somebody truly loves you and they want to marry you and they want to be all those things, not just talk about those things, you'll know they will do it, and it will happen. So, and have faith. There's 7 billion people in the world. There's great people, and people are awesome. And as soon as you start attracting those type of people in your life, you're going to thrive. So whatever you're in, it's not forever. And if a kid going through an experience happens to catch this on YouTube or anything, you don't deserve it. And you can make something really awesome out of this. And you could possibly change the world because of this. So I definitely want to leave people with the possibilities in life outside of their situation. And even though you can't see it, get some help, because we see you thriving, and we see you overcoming your obstacles, and we see you when all that pain and suffering and all those things that were meant to break you are gone. And you can live your true self and make wise decisions, because you have a clear head. So the first step would be forgive yourself, love yourself, do things to love yourself. In recovery, the first step really is breaking the cycle, but the first step of recovery would be forgiving yourself and loving yourself, and building yourself up and envisioning the type of relationship you want, the type of marriage you want, the type of man you want, woman you want, the type of women relationships you want, I decided a while ago I was going to be a girl's girl, because girls are just so hard on each other, so, be good to women. Tell them they're beautiful. If you like their shoes, tell them you like their shoes.
Yes, queen, yes.
Tell them. So men, don't be afraid to let somebody else shine. It's okay. If we could teach emotional intelligence in the classroom, we'd be a much better world, right? So just be nice to yourselves and love yourselves, and those scars, put a tattoo on it, call it a day, let it tell a story. They all go away. But there are resources out there. There is help. There are ways out. There are specific situations, sex trafficking, child abuse, people being handcuffed to objects right now, that obviously this wouldn't pertain to. But for the ones that, like me, were in a cage, but the door was open, there's going to be a beautiful life for you outside of it, just like mine.
That's awesome. Well, I know you mentioned earlier breakthrough session stuff. So if they want to get with you on getting help with this and need an accountability partner and someone to lead them through this, tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay. So you can find me on JeannetteCatalano.com. And there it explains what I do. I do help people body and mind. I think the physical plane is very important. The physical body is so important. A lot of our confidence comes just from building ourselves up physically. So that kinesthetic. But after working with so many people, and maybe working with women over the years that are maybe 300 pounds or more, and why they're suffering because they can't lose weight, I then began to study the mind. And in a lot of terms, I ran into sexual abuse, at a lot of time I ran into, they didn't want to be seen because of some kind of abuse. So I incorporated the mind. And I think, which is more important, they go hand in hand. But in order for someone to have a breakthrough, we got to clear out, cut the resistance bands that are holding us back, or empty out that book bag of emotional bricks. And so we can have a better life. So you'll find me on JeannetteCatalano.com, explain everything that I do and what timeline therapy does. You know, they use it on children who suffered through the war in Croatia. So it's a little different approach of therapy. Casey's familiar with it. A lot of you I see on here that I know are on it too. We got coaches here. So there's help everywhere. There's help everywhere. You're not alone, and we are just another outlet to reinforce that.
That's amazing. Yes, no, definitely. Timeline therapy is very different and very interesting, and it's amazing what your subconscious will be able to clear out and remind you of. So definitely take advantage of that. Jeannette, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone who came.
Yes, if
and
anybody
shared
has
and
questions,
supported.
feel free to put them in the comments or reach out to Jeannette, and she'll be able to get those to you. And I will post this up with all of the information for the support, as well as how to get a hold of Jeannette, just in case you have any questions on the spelling. I got you. I'll get you a little link, instant gratification, and we're good. To anybody who's suffering, I really, really hope that you can muster the strength to seek support and to lead a happier life. And we love you, and you're worth it. And if you need any of us, please feel free to reach out to the people that love you, because they just want to see you shine.
That's it.
So we're all going to get through this together, guys. Corona's not going to last forever, and things are going to go back to a new normal, but we want to be here to support each other. Just like Jeannette said, women knock each other down, men knock each other down, and we really just need to come together as one, support each other so that we can grow stronger together and really live on this planet in a more fulfilled and abundant state. So that's why we're here at Lady Problems, having all of these conversations, getting vulnerable, and making sure that we can support each other. So
definitely. And this was a vulnerable conversation for sure.
That was amazing.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Casey, for inventing this really cool show. And, everyone be sure to keep following her. She's going to keep tackling really, really sensitive subjects. So, and we'll keep doing them together, Casey, too.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy Thursday. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.